Good morning. It's time for the Law and You, and it's good morning to John Fradgley.
Yeah, good morning, Cole, and good morning, everybody. My first program remotely from our offices at Bundall, so I hope everything will go according to plan. But welcome all to the program. 55208888 is our number. If you have a question or a query, that number again, 55208888. Don't forget, if you're south of the border, put 07 in front of the number, or more particularly if you're south of the Tweed River, you need to put 07 in front of the number. Otherwise, you'll get straight through. Thank you to all the people who called in last week and made for such an interesting program. Just arising out of that, and very quickly, you may remember that Bob called and asked whether cash as legal tender can be refused as a form of payment, and I said that I thought that if a business specified the way they were accepting payment, then there probably was no legal obligation to accept legal tender or cash, and I have in fact confirmed that since, Bob, so if you happen to be listening, that is the case. And I specifically mentioned a coffee shop I saw in Melbourne a few months ago which had a sign which said credit card only, no cash accepted. And that's obviously advising customers before they purchase that that's the only means of payment. But enough of that, Cole. I believe we've got some callers online.
Yes, we've got someone in early, and John, we have Mary on the phone for you. Good morning to you, Mary.
Hi, Mary. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
How can I help?
I'm a guardian for a family member of mine, and I very soon have to give notice to the facility, the aged care facility, for the family member to leave and to go to another facility.
Right.
How long now? I don't handle the money. Public trustee handles the finances.
Right.
So could I take the family member out after that allotted time of the notice given to the aged care facility before the other facility can take the family member in?
Does the person have capacity or not?
What did you say?
Does the person have capacity or not?
Well, that's the reason I'm guardian.
So they don't have legal capacity?
No.
So, look, Mary, I think in normal circumstances you probably could. However, I would be very concerned in the current environment in doing so, because as you're probably aware, nursing facilities have all been locked down so that people are kept protected from the current coronavirus. And in those circumstances, I think it would be a matter of you coordinating between the current facility that your relative is in, the new facility that they're going to, and you mentioned that the public trustee control their finances?
Yes.
Yes, and also with the public trustee to make sure that it's a seamless transfer. And I just wonder whether in the current environment, the better method for your relative to transition from one facility to the other would be for them to be transported by either outpatient transport or alternatively by ambulance.
All right.
Because the problem you've got at the moment is that if you take them out into the community, even if it's just simply taking them to your home, then that's potentially exposing them, and you may then have a problem with the new facility as to whether they're comfortable accepting them if they have been out outside of a facility. So that would probably be a conversation to also have with the new facility, whether there would be any problem with that. But I would be, in the current environment, I would just be a little bit concerned about taking a relative out of the protected environment that exists in these nursing facilities at the present time.
Okay. Right, well,
I think, Mary, did you send in an email in relation to this question?
Yes.
Yes, I only just got that earlier today, but fortunately I did have a read through it very quickly just a minute ago, and it's probably fortuitous that you've called in because it's given me the opportunity to answer the matter for you. But if I have any further thoughts on it, Mary, I've got your email address, and so
Yes.
I'll respond further by email if I have any further thoughts on it.
Thank you.
Okay, then, all the very best.
Thank you.
And the time on 4CRB is 9:10. Do we have any more callers there at the moment, Cole?
We do, John. We have Bronwyn on the line for you now.
Okay. Good morning, Bronwyn.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. That boring subject of fences between neighbours.
Oh, yes, and I bet they're becoming more, or they're probably becoming a little less boring at the moment with all of us spending far more time at home.
Yeah, well, the story is the lady who owns the second duplex next door to our property lived there. Then she found the love of her life and moved out, and she's renting the property. Now, I rang her in the middle of 2018 and said, look, it's time we did something with the fence. And she said, well, can I hang off because they were planning a big social wedding in August. And I said, well,
Right.
fair enough. It's, you know, some girl's dream for that day.
Yes.
But why spend all that money on it? I'm not quite sure. But anyway, I can think of better things to spend money on than a big party.
Well, particularly at the
and I
moment.
do enjoy parties. But now I get the cold shoulder. Every time I contact her, she won't answer the call. I contacted the real estate agent that's handling her property now, and the poor girl there was in absolute stress about the virus, and obviously they're missing out on their commissions for all of that stuff. But the fence really needs to come. I saw the guy who's renting the place, and the fence is going to fall down on top of his car. One day he's going to wake up and he's going to have a fence wrapped around his vehicle. And I warned him of it. Now, what can I do? My husband got some paperwork. How long, if I put the fence up and pay for it, how do I get my money out of her?
Well, whatever you do, don't do that without following the procedures laid down under the Neighbourhood Dispute Resolution Act. Do you have access to the internet?
Oh, yes. My husband does, but I can't be bothered with all of it.
No, fair enough. So what I would suggest you do then, Bronwyn, is get your husband to go online. Do you live in Queensland?
Yes.
Okay. Go online.
We're supporters of the station.
The Queensland Government has a website. I think it's the Justice Department from memory. And if you just put in dividing fence disputes in Queensland or something like that into Google, I'm sure it will bring up the relevant websites. Now, there's a process laid down. Basically, it is this, that you should get at least one and preferably two quotations for
I have
whatever
done that.
needs to be done to the fence. You should send those to the neighbour advising that which one of those you're in favour of. If it's the cheaper one, well, there's not too much to worry about as long as the neighbour agrees. If it's the more expensive one that you would prefer, then you can offer to the neighbour that you'll pay the difference for the extra cost. Now, there's a notice period provided under that. It's either 14 or 30 days. And if they fail to respond to that, you then need to lodge an application with the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal to get an order to fence or an order to repair, depending on what needs to be done. So if your husband looks up that website for you and you follow that process, so first we send those quotes to the neighbour, and then after that, advising them that you require them, that you're giving those notices to them under the relevant legislation. And if they fail to accept one of the two quotes, that you'll proceed to get an order to that the fence be replaced or repaired, as the case may be.
Now, what does all that extra cost me to get
Well,
orders?
it won't cost you anything. It won't cost you anything. The process doesn't cost you anything because QCAT, normally lawyers are not allowed, so everyone does it all themselves. You don't need a lawyer to serve a notice of offence on a neighbour, and you don't need a lawyer to file the application. The application needs to be filed with the Magistrates Court. If you were to give, I'm not sure what's happening during the COVID-19
episode, yes,
restrictions, so whether the Magistrates Court registries are still open for people to go in. But if not, it's probably available online, and you certainly could, I'm sure on the information sheet that the Queensland Government has in relation to fencing disputes, that there is a number on there that you can call to go through that process with them. And you could then they would probably be able to tell you what the current procedure is in the current COVID-19 environment we find ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
I hope my husband was listening intently, and I'll put him to work now.
For his sake.
Okay, thank you very much.
No trouble. All the very best.
Thank you, John. Bye.
The CRB continues to roll along. It's 16 minutes past 9. Cole, any more calls?
We haven't at the moment, John.
All right, okay. Well, that's probably fortuitous because there were a couple of things that I did want to talk about. And don't forget to call in if you do have a question or a query. 55208888 is that number. And, of course, you can always email us at talkback@4crb.com. However, if you send an email in at the moment, we will not be able to deal with that until next week's program, so just bear that in mind. Otherwise, get on the telephone, 55208888. Please don't leave it for the last 10 minutes or so of the program, where often we get a bank up of calls. And unfortunately this week, because I'm not at the studios as a result of the restrictions that 4CRB has in place, I won't be able to call back anyone who's still on the line after the program finishes, because obviously I won't have access to the numbers that they're calling from. So if you do have a question or a query for today's program, please 55208888.
And John, we've
got
Warren on the call.
That I wanted to talk about this morning, and probably the most important one, and what has caused a huge amount of controversy over the last few days, has been the High Court's decision in relation to George Pell, and the unanimous decision of the High Court to acquit Cardinal Pell of all of the charges of which he was convicted in the county court in Victoria. Now, there's been a lot said in the media about this, and the media, a lot of people in the media are absolutely outraged that the High Court has overturned the decision of the Supreme Court of Victoria. But there is an old adage in the law, and particularly in the area of criminal law, which says that it is far better that 100 guilty men should go free than that one innocent person should be convicted of a crime that they did not commit. Now, the standard of proof in a criminal trial is beyond reasonable doubt. And so, therefore, the court needs to be satisfied that that standard of proof was met. And clearly in this matter, the High Court has found that they did not consider on the evidence that was put to the court that the decision of the jury was reasonable in those circumstances. Now, you may agree with the decision of the court, the High Court, or you may disagree, but just bear in mind that our justice system, which has stood the test of time for hundreds of years, is built on that premise. And it is not up to us to say that the court has made the wrong decision. The other side of this too, of course, for me, is the real concern about trial by media. And I was very concerned at the publicity that surrounded this case when it was originally heard and then the appeals. And it is a real concern because I think it's very difficult for a jury to be immune from the influence of media reports in relation to these matters. And sometimes those reports by the media basically infer guilt. They use terminology which basically convicts the person before they've even stood trial. And, of course, the other tenet of our criminal system is that you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. And so I think that the media really does need to take a very good look at itself in the way that these matters are dealt with. I mean, if you cast your memory back to Lindy Chamberlain, the media, from my recollection, were initially hell-bent on convicting her, and she was, of course, convicted. And then it became the media's role, or they saw it as their role, to have her conviction quashed. So, you know, they basically made news on the way to conviction, and then they made news on the way back. And it's very hard to know where the balance may lie in these matters in terms of what should be able to be reported and what should not be able to be reported. But I think that we need our appeal courts more than ever in this environment where the media take on such an aggressive role in the reporting of these matters. So just a little bit of food for thought there anyway.
Nice stuff,
Time
John.
on 4CRB is moving along. We're at 22 minutes past 9. Call anyone online at the moment?
We do. We have Warren on the line. Just one moment and I'll queue him up for you. Actually, we're going to go with Bruce.
Hello, Bruce. How are you?
Good, thanks, John.
How can we
John,
help you today?
I sent through an email last week with information to do with the travel company that we were fully paid for and booked to go on the 23rd of May. The company has cancelled the trip, and now they're refusing to give us our money back, which we've asked. And what they're wanting to do is give us a credit, which is not satisfactory for us because of our age. We want to travel, do some other things beforehand. What is our position? I'm sure there must be other people that heard the same thing happen.
Yes, so what's actually happened for you is that the trip has actually been cancelled, has it?
Yes. We've paid for it completely, which was in progress over 2 instalments.
Yes.
So complied with their thing. As I say, it's due to have gone on the 23rd of May to Japan.
Right.
Well, that's been cancelled. They're now saying, we won't give you your money back. You can only have a credit, and it's only good until the end of 21.
Right, so until the end of next year. Look,
Yes.
Bruce, a lot of these things depend, of course, on the terms and conditions of the contract when you sign up. So I am aware that there are a lot of these travel organisations that have these sorts of cancellation provisions. A lot of them have that you can cancel within 7 days and get a full refund, and if the cancellation is after 7 days, then they have varying amounts that they'll give you back. And in the current COVID environment, they're offering to give people full credits like you're being offered. Now, I personally don't think that that is good enough. And so what I would be inclined to do if I was you would be to get on to the Consumer Affairs. Is this in Queensland or New South Wales?
Yeah, no, in Queensland.
In Queensland. Okay, so what I would be inclined to do if I was you is to call Consumer Affairs. Have you got a pen handy?
No, but I can find the thing later.
Okay, so if you look up, it's Consumer Affairs or the Office of Fair Trading in Queensland. Their number's 137468 or 13QGov if you use the letters on your dial pad on your phone. So 13QGov. So I would be inclined to give them a call and speak to them in relation to it. And of course, the other organisation that I'm sure would be quite interested in this would be the ACCC as well. So, but I would initially speak to Consumer Affairs because I'm sure they're being inundated with calls of people who are in a similar situation, and the ACCC will obviously take on matters that are more substantial. Interestingly, I'm actually in the middle of one of these myself at the moment, where a couple of friends and I had, and of all things, had booked a trip to Japan early April to go skiing, and of course weren't able to go, and we've been offered a credit, but of course the difficulty is that they can't guarantee that they will provide the same accommodation that we booked on the same terms, and so I'm presently in the negotiation phase with them, but that very well may get to the escalation stage if I don't get any satisfaction out of them in relation to the matter. So I do sympathise with you. I know exactly what you're talking about, and one can only hope that I think, have you been in contact with them by telephone and spoken to someone there?
No, the people we've particularly sent emails so that we have a written record of it all the way through.
Yes. Right. Well, look, and are they responding to those emails?
They have sent it. The last one was they sent back to say that there were conditions that they laid down, how the credit was to be used, and etc. But we've just sort of replied back and said, basically, you've cancelled the holiday. We've complied with all your payment schemes and stuff. We feel now that you can't fulfil what we've contracted to you to have.
Yes.
And we would like our money back.
Yes, all right. Well, look, I think you're at the point there where a call to Consumer Affairs would be a very good idea.
Okay. All right, shall try that. Keep you posted.
Okay,
Thank you.
All the very best.
Bye.
And the time on 4CRB is 28 minutes past 9. Any more calls there, Colin?
No, John, the board is clear.
That's about it. Warren didn't come back?
No, he didn't, but we're also experiencing a few difficulties with our telephony system, so Telstra are having a few problems in Burleigh, evidently.
Right, no problems at all. Okay, so 28 minutes past 9. Thank you to all of those people who've called in and made such an interesting program. Just one quick thing before I go, just to mention, and it's been in the news a little bit later, but just to reinforce the prevalence of email scams at the present time. People sending emails and text messages trying to get people to engage in all manner of silly schemes. The ones that are the most dangerous, of course, are ones that have a link attached to them where they're asking you to click on a link. Whatever you do not click on the links that are on those emails because they very well may lead to the infection of your computer system. So do not do that. The other thing, too, is that if you get an email from a friend which looks to be a little bit unusual, just put the browser on the email, the name at the top of the email. And if it's not your friend's email address, well, you can be guaranteed that the email has come from a scam source. And it's amazing how people can send you an email which, for example, says Bill Brown, but when you put the cursor on on the name at the top of the email, it comes up showing that the email address is somewhere in Africa or Russia or goodness knows where. So that's a sure way of knowing that the email is a scam, and you should then, of course, immediately delete it. And under no circumstances ever click on anything on those emails and do not reply to them. I'm John Fradgley from the Bell Legal Group. It's been great to be with you this morning. I'll look forward to being back with you again next week. But as always, until then, it's goodbye and God bless.